Okay, friends, you are in for a treat today. I'm so excited about the conversation I'm about to get to have. I'm sitting here with my new friend, Katelyn James. Katelyn,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored. So
This
honored
is-
to be here.
I had to make sure to press start and record because I'm like, we could just talk and we could just go. So here we are. We are recording. You guys, welcome to Girls Night. This is so fun. Katelyn, for women who haven't gotten to meet you yet, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and a fun fact about yourself?
Oh man, yes. So I'm Katelyn James, and I have been a wedding photographer turned photography online educator for the past 16 years. And so I've grown this just pretty large base of students. And through that, I feel like God has allowed me to share my story, like all parts of my story with this audience. And so, yes, I teach photography, but I also feel like God is just using my life to change other people's lives. So I'm a mom of 4 with 1 sweet boy in heaven, huge part of our story. And then serial entrepreneur, started a school with my sister and brother-in-law and husband, and that's a huge part of our life. So we just have been doing life so differently in so many different areas that we started a podcast about doing life differently. So I am just, I feel like, what part do I explain? But there's a lot of moving parts to our life. And the funniest thing is that I thought back in the day that, this is my fun fact, I thought that I was going to be a professional singer, and I tried out for American Idol and I got cut at the first level. So I'm like, it started out rough, but like we found my groove now.
That is so amazing. And like, if I was 1% meaner, I'd be like, okay, will you sing for us, please? But no, but I am a good friend. And so I don't do that to people. But
I have
have
had
to tell,
friends do that to me. And
Oh
I'm
my-
just like, you can't do that to people on
you
the
can't,
spot.
no, you can't do that to people. My husband, Carl, does fantastic accents. Like he just can do any accent. But
Amazing.
he could do it on command, but he won't. And so
Yes.
I say that's like always my fun fact about him is I'm like, he can do any accent. It's really incredible. And then people look at him like with expectation. And I'm like
here you go.
He's not going to do it right now.
No. Yeah. So that was it. I mean, I told so many people, like, man, yeah. I mean, I thought I was going to sing, and God was like, oh, no. That is not what you're going to do with your life. So, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad that wasn't my life.
Yeah. That's, oh man. Well, I'm so excited to hear about everything. We have done this type of episode a handful of times on the show, and I'm so excited to get to do more. When you said living life differently, yes. I had a book come out back in April, and it's called Create a Life You Love. And really, that's the whole thing is like,
yes,
we think that there's this one way that life should look. We're told that, but the thing is that it's different depending on where you grew up, who your parents are, what your church looks like whatever. And the truth is that there's just not one right way to build a beautiful life. And so one of the things that's been so helpful for me as I've been like dismantling all the shoulds in my life is getting to see other women living differently. Yeah. Because I feel like it just broadens your horizons. It opens the box that you've had your life in. And even if someone's living in a way that you're like, I mean, that's not my cup of tea, seeing that like, while you may be into tea, someone else is into like, I don't know, 7-Eleven Slurpees, like, and that's an option. It helps you think more creatively. So, this series is called How She Does It. And I have a million questions about like, what does this look like? What does your life look like? Where did you zig when everyone else told you to zag, et cetera, et cetera?
Yes. Love it.
So, first of all, this is one of my, just to kind of kick us off on a high before we kind of go back to the beginning of the story. This is one of my favorite questions to ask everybody. This is like my dinner table conversation starter. I want to know something that you're really proud of. Something that you've achieved, an honor you've been given, something you didn't think you'd be able to do, something you worked for. And I want it to be something that like people may not know about you, or like that it's kind of in poor taste to share on Instagram, but like you'd call your mom and be like, Mom, guess what? So that's my question. My first question is, tell me something that you're really proud of.
I would say, it's so funny you mentioned your mom. I'm like, this has to do with my mom. Right before I got pregnant with my first baby, my mom was a school nurse. She was working a school nursing job at a public middle school. And it just was sucking the life out of her. And I remember being like, you know what? Our business is growing. I think I could create a position for my mom. Like, I think I could hire her. And that was 8.5 years ago. And now I fully support both of my parents, their health insurance, my sister, her family, my sister-in-law, their family. My entire media family is supported by my business. And that also produces, I have to constantly work. We have an amazing coach. I constantly have to work through like, do I have a savior complex? Do I have a problem with this? But I fully release this constantly to the Lord, like surrender. Like it's not my job to make sure they have income. That's not my job. It's the gift and the opportunity that I've been given in the season. May not be forever, but for almost a decade, like I've been able to pay my mom to help me raise her grandchildren. I mean, we're raising our children, but she is full-time childcare and has gotten to like welcome 10 grandbabies into the world in the last 7 years. And she spends her days getting paid to be a grandmother, but also be an assistant to us. It's just the greatest. When they're like, do you love being featured on, CNBC? And I'm like, no, I love that I have created a job for my mom that she loves. That's like the greatest thing. So
this is why I love, like, if we get nothing else out of this conversation, I am done. Because that is something that like had not occurred to me.
Yeah.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Oh my gosh.
And I forget it. I forget it sometimes because it's so not normal. But like it has been, it's just such a gift. Like it's such a gift to be like, you know what? I think this business can support what you need financially. Can you support this role? And like my children have never gone to daycare. She's upstairs right now reading to my 3-year-old and my sister's 3-year-old on the couch while the two babies, my baby and my sister's baby, are napping. And then my sister and our other team member are like up right there in a different office working. And like, it's because I started this business. That's crazy. That's crazy.
Oh my gosh. That is a dream that I didn't even know to dream. That is so cool. I have to know, do you work in your house? Or they
Yes.
Okay, so can you tell me about your house? Like what are the different, because it sounds like if you have a couple different offices, I'm curious about the layout.
You're going to think this is funny, but it's very timely that you would say that because I have this beautifully curated, perfectly minty teal Pottery Barn inspired office with built-in shelves that I designed this house when I was like a mother to none. And guess what that is now? It is a playroom and it is completely destroyed right now with toys. Glass doors, so when you walk in our house, you can see the disaster that is a playroom. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to be like my picture perfect Pinterest-worthy office, and it is now where my kids throw all their stuff. So we created a YouTube studio. We have a decently large YouTube channel for the photography industry. And so we needed a studio without windows so that we could film at any time of day. That's where I am now. But it's in the basement. And I've been on this like real big health crunchy journey because my son had some struggles. And so it's a part of our story of doing life differently. I've just been learning so much about biohacking and about how we need sunlight in our eyes. And like me working down here in this dungeon I'm grateful for it, but there's no natural light. And I'm realizing it's actually so bad for your hypothalamus, for like what contributes to thyroid function. And I'm having like some thyroid issues. So I'm like, I got to stop this. So we just made my husband's office our new KJP office. So we have an office upstairs and an office down here for filming. And my sister, we have a family compound. She lives next door. And so my kids go over there with her kids when we work here, and then we swap. How weird do I sound now, right? Doing life differently.
This is so awesome. Did you guys, the family compound thing, I'm like, I had someone else tell me that recently that they like kind of bought a piece of land with some friends and have just kind of built more houses on it. And I'm like, again,
dream.
Adding that to my dream list.
Yes.
How long have you guys lived next door? How long did it take to find houses that were next to each other? Did you build them, or what did that look like?
That is a great question. I have this repeating pattern in my life. This is another thing maybe that can give you permission to think like beyond the realm of normal. I just write letters to people that own pretty fields that I love that are not for sale. And I wrote a letter for this 7-acre parcel and to this old couple. And I put a picture of Michael, my husband, and I, and our little dog at the time. And I'm like, we want to put down roots. We want to build a family here. Can we build a house on your land? And they were like, people have asked us for 21 years and you just asked at the right time and we'll sell it to you. I'm like, oh my gosh. So sold us land. Then there was an empty lot beside us that was 15 acres, but it was all in the flood zone, potentially like no prospects of building. And my sister and brother-in-law were like, you know what, we'll spend $5,000 to see if we could resurvey the wetlands. And they did, and they found a way to build a house on a portion of it. So our 8 children combined, cousins, run to each other's houses. Tonight we're going to their house for dinner because my sister made too much soup last night. And you know what? You want to know something even crazier? Like we prayed for a community, and like this year the Lord is like exploding our minds with like what could be possible. So we started a school, a local school for our children and for others. It's called an Acton Academy. It's entrepreneurial-based schooling that's self-directed. It's amazing. That's a whole nother podcast episode. But one of the families that send their children to the school that we love kind of accidentally bought the house behind my sister. So now these kids that go to school together, that like parents all have the same values, like they're all playing together in the woods in the country. And I'm just like, this life is what a dream. What a dream childhood. So it's only been a year. I mean, my sister just moved in a year ago. But yeah, we've even lived in the same house together before. So this just feels very natural for us, like our families doing life together.
That's truly incredible. I don't know if you might know this, you might not. My family just moved to Spain. Like 4 months ago.
I know. Did not know that.
So we've lived in Nashville for the last 10 years. Where are you based? I don't know this.
Virginia, Richmond,
okay.
Virginia. Yep.
Okay. We were in Nashville for 10 years and we are in Spain. We rented out our house and picked up and we're here with my best friend and her family and their dog. And so right before we hopped on, I have sidewalk chalk on my shirt. You can't see it because our kids were all at a playground, just like, I mean, my girls didn't have shoes on. They're like just running around together. And I'm like, I don't know what our next chapter is, but like this connectedness has to be part of it.
It's so cool though. I love hearing stories like that because like, who does that, right? Who does that? Only people who have decided that like normalcy is not going to define what I think my parameters are, you know? And like, I just feel like that is, and this is the season to do it. Like young kids, how awesome. How awesome.
I want to know more about, and I can like walk us through the actual questions that I have prepared. If I like ask you a question, you're like, okay, well, now that you asked me, I can't think of anything. I feel like that always happens, you know?
Yes.
But I want to know, tell me more about your business and how you've structured it and what that's looked like. Because I know that, I mean, you have a thriving business. You've been doing this for 16 years. And now knowing what I know about you, I'm like, you have not followed the rules, whatever the rules are. Like, so how have you made your business in a way that actually fits you?
That's a good question. I think it really helped me when I started that I had no money for marketing. Like I couldn't do photography the way everyone else did. So I started blogging. I started sharing my life. I started creating like this personal brand around like my business. And at the time, like I know that's so normalized now, but at the time, no one did that. Also, no one openly shared information in our industry. So like I started thriving. People started asking questions instead of shutting them down. I'm like, okay, I'll just start hosting workshops. And workshops led to courses and courses led to this, 50,000 online students. And I mean, I think what served me well was avoiding this scarcity mentality that like, oh, maybe I could just help people. And instead of that taking anything from me, maybe it's going to build their life and build something new for me that I can't even imagine. And what was waiting for me on the other side of not thinking with this scarcity mindset was years of a multi-million-dollar business and getting to support my family in a way that I never imagined. And so, my business now looks like 2 weddings a year, which sounds crazy because I used to shoot 48 weddings a year. So I'll do some family sessions, but like I've really scaled back and we focus on the education side. And we have a team of women and our videographer, Ty, who's a dear friend of ours, but like great team. And our goal now is to optimize and be efficient and help as many people as we can, while also like our goal in 2025 is to get down to a 4-day work week, but still be growing our annual income. And so we've had mentors helping us get to that point. And yeah, I spend our days figuring out ways to educate and figuring out ways to help people with their lives through what I'm learning in my own. So
I love that. I love that so much.
yes.
Did you one of the things that we talk about so much in my community is this idea that I've decided to call the everything era.
Yes.
And it's kind of, our late 20s into our 30s. And it's a season of life where we're having to make some of our most of our most biographically significant decisions all at the same time and in front of an audience that has a million opinions.
Yes.
And so I want to know, like, as you've been doing these things, what are some of the supposed to's that you've bumped up against that have and have they been challenging, or have you always just been I'm going to color outside the lines and it doesn't bother me if people think that's weird?
Yeah, these are some good questions. I would say the first thing was, can I even be a mom? I mean, I became a mom at 29. So it wasn't like this 24-year-old decision. It was like I was still growing my business in my 20s. And so entering into my 30s, mid 30s, now I'm like 36. So I feel like there was this like, okay, should I have kids, or am I like this boss babe woman who dominates the business world? And like, can that be? I can't be a mom. Like, I'm a businesswoman. That was the first thing. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. I remember our life coach being like, Katelyn, what if because I was convinced I'm going to have children and like my identity as a business owner, no one's going to like care anymore because I'm going to be irrelevant. And she was like, but what if you actually were even more relevant? Like, what if you are actually going to be stronger as a businesswoman because you changed so much? And that's exactly what happened to me. Like we 3X'd our business when I became a mom, and I worked less, like insane. So like all these lies that I just believed out of fear were not true, And then I had the whole struggle of, I follow all these people that are like, these are the baby years. Like you have to just stop working and cherish them because they will be gone in an instant. And that gets into your head and you're like, I should shut it all down. Like that's what I'm supposed to do. Like this is my only time with these tiny babies and I should just shut it all down. I can't be a working mom with young kids. I have the freedom to scale back. But then in my heart, I'm like, I'm called to something though. I am deeply called to be creating and leading people even in the messiness of motherhood. So that went against the grain of like, can I do both and do it well? Like, can I work from home and lay down my baby for a nap and still run a multi-million-dollar business and still be super present with my kids and not miss it? I think I can, but I'm going to have to defy what the world says. And then the other thing is, we just had a coaching call about this 2 days ago. And like, I battle so much with the thought of like, should I keep my life more simple? Like, maybe I should simplify because we're doing a lot. And like, I do think there's truth in that we could look at our life differently and like slow some things down. But I'm like, we already have slowed a lot down. I think we're just called to this kind of unnatural level of impact. And I think some people are called to that. Like Michael and I, yes, it would be so much easier if we just homeschooled our kids. But we started a school that is a home now and a community for 40 families that like it's life-changing for them and for us. Like I know that we're called to that. So I have got to defy this era of doing everything and be like, okay, I'm not trying to be everything to everyone, but what I am called to specifically doesn't look like the normal mom's calling. And how do I gauge what God wants me to do and when I'm doing too much? And that's a constant battle. But I've accepted really that like what I'm called to is just, there's no comparing it. No comparing it to our best friends, no comparing it to my sister. Like I am individually called to something and it's got to be between me and the Lord. It cannot be defined by the rest of the world. So Did that answer that question? I don't even know if it did.
Yes, it totally did. And so it made me think of something, and I'm not going to be able to, I might mess this up, but stick with me. So I was reading a book, and it was one of Jen Hatmaker's recent, I can't remember which one. But in it, she's talking about that there are different volumes of people.
Ooh,
that
yes.
there's mega personalities, and I think it's meso personalities. I don't know, music. You're a music person.
Yes.
You can help me.
Yes.
And then minor personalities, not meaning less than, but just quieter.
Yes.
Or maybe piano. I don't know. Help me here.
I don't know either.
Okay.
I don't know either.
So it's big, medium, and small. We'll say loud, medium, quiet, and. It did not, she kind of defines them a little bit. She's like, the loud people are the ones who are sort of leading out in front. They're the people with the big opinions that kind of get in trouble sometimes because their mouth runs away with them. But this is what they bring to the world. This is kind of what they struggle with. Here are these medium people. Here are the small people, or the more quiet people. And her point was that when you tell a quiet person that they have to be loud, it's wrong. It's wrong because you're making them be something that is so deeply uncomfortable to them, which occasionally is a great thing, but not always.
Right.
And then in the process, you're missing the gift in their volume.
Right.
And same for medium and same for loud people. And I think I always felt because I am a leader in these different ways, because I have a podcast, because I write books, I think I thought that I had to be this mega out front. I have the loudest opinions. I'm going to speak first after something hard happens. I'm going to I have the loudest opinions, and I'm not that kind of person. I'm not quiet either. I'm more in the middle. Yes. And I just didn't have language for it. And I mean, I still don't, because I can't remember what it was called, but I didn't have language to wrap around that. And so when you're saying my life, maybe our lives are the same way, that there are some people who are supposed to have really loud, really big, really busy lives.
Yes.
And then there's some people for whom simplicity and quiet and unplugged works great. And then I think for everyone else, it's kind of some of both, but realizing that your life, you're not doing it wrong. You're just it's just kind of a different size, a different volume.
Exactly. And I think that is rooted in our own insecurity, because when you think about why we're looking to other people to tell us if it's okay what we're doing, we're really just looking for assurance that we're on the right track from someone else's perspective. Is this normal? Is this who I'm supposed to be? Am I supposed to be a little bit loud? Am I the supposed to's and the shoulds define? It's coming to us from a place of what are we rooted in? Who is telling me that I'm on the right track? Who is giving me the go ahead of follow this? And if it's not founded in the Lord, then it's well, you're going to be forever shaken by every opinion, forever shaken by every thing that you think might be normal. Maybe I don't fit into that. And so, I definitely feel there's a level of acceptance and just appreciation for the fact that we are called to such different levels of loudness and different levels of doing and different levels of our voice being heard. I think I talk about this all the time, the story of our son that we lost. I shared so publicly during that season of loss. And I talk to women all the time who have stillbirths and who walk through that. And they're like, I can't do what you did. I'm you're not supposed to, because your willingness to have a conversation to a mom on the playground that you just walk up and talk to and you realize, oh my gosh, she's losing this baby. I lost a baby. Your willingness to have that conversation on the playground is equally as impactful as me getting on a podcast. You might not think that, but it's the willingness. God uses the willingness. You cannot find any type of marker or measurement for saying that my way of sharing and my way of using my story is more impactful than someone else's. Mine's just it's just visible, whereas others is going to be a little bit quieter, a little softer playground conversation. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I find that it's so freeing to realize that your life and your mission in your life and your calling is just never supposed to look like anyone else's. So you can't ever define if you're doing the right thing by looking at anyone else. So I say that, I still wrestle with it. I say that and I'm still in the struggle, but there's so much truth to that And I love the permission that book that it gave you, like, just to have like, man, yeah, what is my loudness level? Like, where do I fit on that scale? And how can I own that part of the scale?
Yes.
So,
And I love too that it can be loud or quiet in different seasons. Like
mhm.
there are times where like just because you shared that story so publicly doesn't mean that you share every story publicly. Like
Oh,
it's
right.
the call changes, the
Yes.
like environment changes, what your family needs, what you need, like it just
Yes.
changes.
Oh, all the time. Yes. It changes all the time. And there's such freedom in being able to live into that. Like, yeah, like you don't have to concretely sign your name into this thing of like, I will always be this way. I'll always be this loud on every topic of my life. Like, who would sign up for that? Nobody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I want to know when you were talking about the volume of your life and like what you're called to, do you have moments where you doubt that calling or
mm,
where something doesn't go the way that you think it's going to, or you've had a setback of some sort and you've been like, am I actually called to this? Or did
yeah.
I sort of step into bigger shoes that like weren't meant for me?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever had the thought that I've stepped in shoes that are too big for me, which is interesting. I should probably unpack that later. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but I've never had that thought. I have had the thought that like maybe God's done with me. And I'm like, so where is that coming from? And I'm like, oh, it's coming from this insecurity that I'm not relatable or I don't feel like I'm useful anymore. I'm not. And it's coming from a lack of me pursuing self-care. My failure in life is that I fail often at like, and I'm realizing just in this season, like to take care of myself, because taking care of myself is where my growth happens. And if I'm not pouring into the side of my life where I am filled up and where I'm learning and growing and changing things, and then like I have nothing to pour out. And if I have nothing to pour out, I start to believe the lie that I'm not valuable as a leader and that maybe God's done with me. And I feel like God's being like, no, Katelyn, I never said that I'm done with you. I just want you to pursue me first. And from the overflow of that will be your next season. And from the overflow of that will be your next message and your next offering and your next resource, your next product. But like you just are not abiding in me. And so you feel empty on the inside. I'm like, yes, that's it. That's my failure is, and it comes from, you know, my mom is such a doer. My sister's such a doer. We're all so efficient, but all of us struggle to take time to like really feed us. And it's something we're all learning in different ways. And so it's kind of generational. I'm learning that like it's not selfish to do a massage once a month. Like I've had like some vagus nerve issues where it's like, why do I feel dizzy all the time? It's like, because my nervous system's not well. So I'm learning that like my failure actually has nothing professionally, nothing to do professionally. It's how I show up to the professional side of my life that has been my failure. And,
Mm.
and I'm relearning how to do that better in this season. So
That's so good. I want to go in two different directions from that. So I'm going to I like need a pen. Um, one, I want to know like when you have encountered setbacks at work or in something that you were pursuing in starting the school, in
oh
sending a
yeah.
letter to someone with land and having them like laugh at you and be
Yes.
like, no, absolutely not.
Yes.
What do you do with that failure? Like, or with that setback,
Yeah.
how do you process it? How long do you stay down? How do you get back up? Like,
Sure.
talk us through that.
Um, well, that's a good question because I feel like there's two different versions of me in those scenarios. One person accepts the failure and then is like, okay, but I'm going to try to make it happen anyway. and so it was a failure in that season, but like, okay, so I'm going to try again. So I guess that's the grit side of me. And then there's the other side, like we're in that season right now. We're trying to acquire land to build a campus. And I wrote another letter and I've been in a conversation for an elderly woman for almost 2.5 years. And I just got the letter of intent signed yesterday. 2.5 years of fighting for this. I drove to this woman's house and showed up on her front porch to hand deliver the letter because I couldn't get a response from her. Like I'm crazy. And I remember there were setbacks with that, and I'm still encountering setbacks with that. And I think there's a level of grit that it's like, this is a setback. It's not going the way I want. I'm praying, I'm surrendering, and I still feel called to it. I'm going to fight. I'm going to try a new angle. And then there's a side to me where where I really have to work through the shame of like, how did I screw this up? And it's like, wait, what if it wasn't a screw up? What if it's opportunity? In the school that we started for our children, my husband like leads it. He's the head of school, and it's just, he's such a good coach. He's so good with kids, and he teaches them just like there are three monsters in life. The monster of victimhood, the monster of resistance, and the monster of distraction. And I think watching 5 to 7-year-olds, all the way up to 11-year-olds, but really 5 to 7-year-olds understand what it's like to be a victim to failure and what a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset is, like it calls me up. Like I can't sit in the failure very long. Because my 7-year-old doesn't sit in her failure long. She's learning this so young. So I've got to, we've had some big business failures. I've made some poor decisions. I've spent a lot of money on dumb things that led absolutely nowhere. And I do look at those and I'm like, those were turning points. Those were turning points of me realizing I am running after the wrong thing. I spent 30 grand getting a publication just so Instagram would verify me. Isn't that crazy? $30,000 just to get a feature so that Instagram would be like, oh, you're legit. And then the next month they came out with a feature where you can just pay to be verified. And I'm like, oh no, $30,000 later, I'm an idiot. But isn't it interesting? Like I look at that failure. I truly do see that as a failure. And I'm like that. It pivoted me away from like, I was chasing the wrong thing. That's what I was chasing. So I do feel like there's shame at first. And then I try to pull myself out of that into all right, the Lord's showing me something. And I'm ready to see it because I don't want to live through that again. So
yes, that's so, have you, the book that I'm reading right now is Grit by Angela Duckworth.
Yes.
And so that's exactly where like I'm learning so much about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And I didn't know any of that. Like that was the first time I had heard those phrases. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like here I have a growth mindset, here I have a fixed mindset. And anyway, so and her whole thing is like, how do you keep going when you've been knocked down? So now I'm like, I need to know from everybody, what does this look like?
Yeah. Yes. And it's so I see it everywhere now. Like we just had a team meeting and I'm just like, we got a lot of things where we're just like, it's only one way. It's got to be one. It's like the possibility that we miss out on when we get stuck in a fixed mindset is, and then it turns into a victim story and then it perpetuates itself. And then man, how many people are missing out on so much life because they're stuck in the pit of being a victim? I'm not saying you can't grieve. I've had horrible things happen to me. Like you've got to grieve and you got to be sad. But like there is a moment where you're like, all right, I hate this. I hated that. But now what? Now what do I do? I've got a choice to move forward. So, and moving forward in shame it just reverts you back to the victim story. So we've got to overcome the shame in order to get to the next level of growth. And so I could talk about this for days, but that is we've spent 8 years of transformational life coaching as a couple, working through that in our own marriage. And so it has been so powerful now to have a school designed to, that's like the foundation model of the school. So our children are learning what we learned in our 30s, they're learning when they are just starting kindergarten. It's crazy.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. That's so cool. Can you define growth mindset versus fixed mindset for us real quick? Because I know that I just threw that out there. I'm not even sure, like I'm not good at defining it yet.
Oh, I don't think I am either, but I think a growth mindset is the type of mindset that sees something and it's like, it's not yet, right? I'm not good at this yet. I haven't figured this out yet. And there's possibilities ahead of me because my failures push me towards growth. Whereas a fixed mindset is like a very black and white line in the sand. I'm bad at math and I'll never be good at it. And when you apply that to like my life, it's whenever I have like stopped seeking possibilities because I'm so certain of a black or white decision in my mind. So A very good example for me recently would be that I've tried for 15 years to add team members to like get rid of some of my workload. And like, that's just not possible. Well, that's a very fixed mindset. That's deciding that I know the trajectory from now to eternity, it will never be different for me. And I've decided that. Why have I decided that? Because one, I'm scared that I'll never find the solution. Two, I think there's part of me that likes being the victim and being like, it's all on me. Like we all like our victim story. That's why we choose it, which is a lot of people don't like hearing that, but we choose victim stories a lot. And then, so the other thing is that it literally gives my brain permission to stop trying. So when you say like, I'll never be able to find someone that can help me with my job. I've tried and I've proven if I've decided I'll never find someone and then I try to hire someone and it doesn't work, then I'm just proving myself right to this very deeply rooted belief. And our brain does that. We do that with our relationships. If I've decided my husband's annoyed with me, even though he's never said it and I've never dug deep to see if that's the truth, if I've decided it and he walks in and doesn't seem super excited, I'm like, proof, there's another checkbox. See, you're annoyed by me. And that it's just from the belief system. So if my belief system is fixed, then my limits and my possibilities are just cut off. Like there's no source to like feed new possibilities. So that's how I do have a new team member and my workload has completely shifted and I've had to constantly revisit like, okay, maybe I've really blocked off possibility because I was scared that I would never find it. I was scared and I was living in this reality of like, I'm always going to have to work this much. That's just who I am. I think it's part of the savior complex. I'll just always have to be this busy. When the reality is it's no, I'm not anymore. I found the right person. And I had to make that shift mentally to even be able to see the possibility of the role that she could fill, to be able to work through like, okay, yeah, how can I outsource reels on Instagram if I want my touch on it? Like I couldn't even see possibilities when I was stuck in a fixed mindset. I had to enter the growth. I don't think I defined it. I think I just rambled on about how it applies to me, but does that help?
No. I love that. I love that. And it's funny, there are something that I'm currently learning is, as I've been listening to Grit on audiobooks, I'm like wandering around the streets of Spain listening to this and like thinking about my own fixed and growth mindsets.
Yes.
And a place where I see growth is in my Spanish. I speak like great Spanish, not as great as I want it to be.
Yeah.
And I'm really working on that. And there's not a part of me that's like, well, I either have the Spanish gene or I don't have the Spanish. Like I wasn't born speaking Spanish. I've just learned it over time. And so I'm like, okay, well, I want to be great at this. Well, with some time and some work and some consistency, I will be great at this.
Yes.
But when things go south, there's like certain areas of my work where I'm like, if this doesn't go the way that I think it's going to, or the way that I hope it goes, that feels like a stamp of, or that feels like evidence of the fact that like, oh, maybe you're not good. Like maybe you can't do this, or maybe you're not, maybe this isn't meant for you, or maybe you're not good enough for this or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that might be holding me back from so many things.
Yes. How many things? Looking for evidence for what we've subtly internally believed is true, I think keeps people from so much that they don't even realize.
What have been some of your favorite resources on this topic? Because we need to, like, for people who are like, yes, tell me more. Do you have some like favorite books or something?
Well, I would say having a coach in our life, and I know this is not like a resource you can just go get right now, but having a coach in our life to constantly point out when this is showing up in our language has been transformational to us. Like absolutely amazing. Mindset by Carol Dweck is an older book, but it's a book that we make all the parents read at our school because they have to understand that concept before they bring their children to the school, or else it's never going to work. I think, and this is another thing you can't like just look up on, a podcast and just listen to today and fix all the things. But I feel like we grow so much because we have friends who speak the same language as us. So like best friends who are like, okay, you are so limiting in the way you're talking about this situation. Like you're so stuck. And it is such a gift to have people say that, to have someone be able to look at you and be like, I know you, and I know you know what it's like to be stuck in a belief system, but here's a belief system I hear, and it's going to give you a lot of answers if you can break through that. So that is, and to have a family. So our entire family does coaching as personal development for the business. So our business pays for my whole family to have a coaching experience. And man, our family conversations are so different because everyone understands more of how our brains work. So I wish I could say that I have like all these podcasts, but I've never once listened to a podcast about any of this because I don't have time to. But it's really been from personal development in our own coaching experience, friends and community who speak the same way and think the same way. And then that book is a great starting point that we really hadn't even dove into until we started the school. So
I love that. I just actually downloaded it. I have it in my Audible queue. So that's so awesome. The thing that I love about these conversations and really the podcast in general is that like we don't know what we don't know, and we can't think about things that we haven't I feel like our imaginations only take us so far on their own. We sometimes just need like a little shove in a direction, and then that can send us running. And that's why I love this so much. And so when you say that you have friends who speak this same language, like having people in your life who can ask you good questions or encourage you in a different way or point out something to you. And, it's so good when we have that in our real life. But my hope with the podcast is to bring people into everyone's real life that they just may not be able to talk to otherwise.
Exactly. Yes. And just to hear that like, oh, wow, is that a thing? Like, is that a thing for other people? Like, one of my coaching call, homework assignments was to ask my brother-in-law what he hears me complain the most about so that I can get clearer about my victim story that I am just portraying to the world, but I'm so blinded to. Like what you don't know, you don't know. Okay, so now our team does that. Now our school staff does that. Like go to someone. I'm having our students do this in a new program I'm releasing soon. I'm going to have my students go to the people that know them the best and say, what do you hear me complain about the most? And whatever you get defensive towards, whatever their response is, whatever you get defensive towards, that's your ticket to growth. If you start to feel like, no, I am not, I don't complain about that. Like, okay, it doesn't matter what you think. That's how they perceive you. And that's what you resist will persist. So like lean into that resistance because that is the ticket to growth. So I love this stuff because I think it has unlocked this whole new reality in relationships, in business, in spiritual growth. Like if you can understand how your brain works and sometimes works against you, it unlocks this whole new world. So,
oh my gosh, I could talk to you for 7,000 years.
I know.
I want to ask just last question for you. If you could go back and tell yourself something 10 years ago, what's something that you would want to say to her?
Well, 10 years ago, I was terrified to be a mom. Terrified. And oh my gosh, if I could go back to her and I know it's going to make me cry. If I could go back to her and be like, oh my gosh, Katelyn, like your greatest strengths, like the best version you will ever be as a human will be through your being a mom. Like you will grow, you will transform who you are. You will fight harder to be who God designed you to be because you have a daughter and 3 baby boys. It will change your life. I was just so naive to the beauty of motherhood. And I was so convinced that the business owner and the success in me, like that was my greatest contribution to the world. And I was so wrong. My greatest accomplishment in life is having my children and becoming the mom that they need me to be. So I would go back to that person 10 years ago and be like, stop freaking out. Stop freaking out and start trying to have a baby because it's going to change your life. So I wish we hadn't have waited that long. I wish I wasn't so scared because I love it. And I don't think we need to have a 5th baby. I think at 4, we are very much at capacity. But every child that I have had, I've just been from the birth process, that we have done very differently to just, as I've released control as a mom, because I have so many children, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is who I was designed to be, who I am in this season. And I've never been more confident as a woman because of who my children have made me to be. So
I love this. I love this. Katelyn, thank you so much for being here and for joining us for Girls Night. And we have to have you back. I'm just saying it right now. We have to have you back.
I would be honored. I could talk to you for like 7 days straight. So thank you for making the time all the way in Spain. How amazing.
So good.